Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. And welcome to this session. I'm Daphna Glaubert from the Startup Launchpad team. And we'll talk about how to turn a proof of concept into a real market traction. I'm not alone here. I'm with two fantastic startuppers, FireDrone and Scully. And in fact, what we will talk about today is maybe the most uncomfortable moment that a startup has to face during that journey. It's a moment when, in fact, you have to put the prototype out of the lab in front of a real customer. No more decks, no more assumption, just the reality. And so I'm happy to be with Fabian and Vinitra because they've got two kinds of startups. They've got, with Scully, a software in a tech, and with FireDrone, it's a drone that goes to the fires. But finally, two market different, two product different, and surprisingly, they've got like a universal lesson about pilot and proof of concept. So before we dive in, can you both tell us, just in one sentence, who you are, what problem you are solving for your customers, and for whom?
Hello, everyone. I'm Vinitra, or Vinny. I'm a recent PhD graduate from EPFL, where both me and my co-founder are the first graduates of the Machine Learning for Education Laboratory. So we did our research in AI, and we founded Scully AI about a year ago towards EdTech, but specifically what learning can look like in the AI era if you rebuild it from the ground up. Essentially AI native learning for enterprise specifically and for adults. And our first use case is teaching folks about where AI can be actually useful in their jobs. So that's what we're working on. Our first client, Swisscom, Decathlon, like kind of the larger enterprise where everyone has a different background or a different interest or a different need, different tools, different tasks, of which you can tailor a lesson to be exactly right for them, but it might look different for each person.
That's impressive. And Fabian?
Yes, so my name is Fabian Wiesemüller. I'm a co-founder and CEO at FireDrone. And at FireDrone, as the name says, we build drones for extreme environments. So basically the idea is that you have a drone that can fly in hot and smoke-filled air. And by that we can actually have a tool that we can give to firefighters to actually do scouting and burning buildings before they send themselves in. Or we can also use the tech to actually do industrial inspection of like high temperature assets. So imagine steel plants, cement plants, oil and gas. Everywhere we have like high temperatures, usually you have to wait a long time until they cool down and you can do the inspection. With our system, you could sort of say on the go, send it in and get the information out.
Well, yes, it's a good description.
Thanks.
So, to start with, I will go with you, Vinitra. I know that your first pilot was with Harvard. What a name, Harvard. It comes as well with high expectation, I guess. Can you tell us more about what you committed with them at the start, and what was your criteria of success?
Yeah, so the way we got the first pilot, the first paying customer, I guess, or it was not a very traditional path, but I think every time you talk to a founder, it's never going to be a traditional path to the first pilot anyway. We had spent the first 3 months of the company in Berkeley, because we're both the EPFL and Berkeley spinoff. We're kind of in both circles. And when I was there, I had used to teach a lot of the data science courses. So back then, our introductory data science curriculum was 100 students. It grew to 1,700, then in 60 universities in a lot of different places. And so they wanted me to come back and teach. And I said, no, I'm doing the startup. And so one of my favorite professors there was like, okay, fine, we're doing this like cool thing with Harvard. You guys should meet. Because what we're trying to do is bring like introductory AI and data science curriculum to people at companies, like to grow this beyond a traditional classroom. And more than that, like to do kind of an AI-enabled classroom where, hey, it's not the traditional MOOC. So if you think in our space, how many of you have taken like a Coursera or edX class? Yeah, how many of you have dropped out of a Coursera or edX class? It's about the same. Yeah, it's actually about 90%. It's Khan Academy retention, 7%. We just feel that there has to be a better way. And luckily, some folks at Harvard also felt the same way. And so they were really excited about these intensives that you could do for 2.5 weeks or 1 month for people at a bunch of different companies, Visa, NASA, Microsoft, Apple, wherever, to just essentially learn agentic AI or generative AI or the foundations of AI with Harvard. And so as part of that, I kind of got roped in to be essentially we pitched Skole as the way to get everyone to the same page. Because if you look at everyone across a lot of these different companies, they all have different needs from what they even want to learn out of this course. But from the beginning, they also have different backgrounds and experiences. They come up to it with like a totally different understanding of what AI is, or have they even tried to create something before, or have they just like rephrased an email with ChatGPT? And so getting everyone up to the same page is what we pitched Skole as. And instead of essentially, part of the deal is that I would have to do one lecture for this class per month, which is fine. And instead of paying me or doing revenue share, they decided to pay $50 a month for Skole for everyone in the course. And now it's the 6th iteration of the course. It's like 500 students a cohort. So things are going well, and they're expanding to 2 or 3 more courses. But again, so the first iteration of what we provided to Harvard was, to be honest, not something that we can even really feel like that proud of. It was an MVP. And I think they took like a real vote of confidence. Everyone saw the potential of what it could be, and how like people felt that it was really cool that they were on the cutting edge of trying something new. But honestly, it was, a vote of confidence that they included us in even their first iteration of this, and they didn't look for like who else could do something like this. Because I think one thing we learned, one of our mentors always says, is like people like to do business with people they like to do business with. So really, it was only about kind of the human connection and someone vouching. That's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, you told me that it's a lot about human connection just before. But the outcome is quite amazing. And it comes as well, I guess, with some challenges, right, in terms of implementation. It's not that easy to come to this kind of institution and implement your product, right?
No, it wasn't easy.
So how it was in terms of technical aspect or adoption aspect?
I mean, at the beginning, the folks in the course were trying it. Some of them were asking for a lot of things. From the beginning, we had this ask often that people want. I guess the reason that like while people are taking these courses, they would love to get like a certificate that they could then share to LinkedIn. And especially, we didn't have that because that was not our ethos. Like we didn't want to be a credentialed provider of information. We had, for example, all of the material from the Harvard class, some from EPFL, from Berkeley, from our professor friends that were teaching AI. And for us, it was more about getting people the knowledge that they need, not necessarily about credentialing. There was a lot of things we had to listen about, like what the bugs were. We were releasing new updates like per week. So the platform could look different over time, and they had to be okay with it. And every time like someone would come to them and be like, yeah, it's so cool that we could do this thing on Skole, and they're like, oh, you could do that thing on Skole. And we're like, now you can. So it was the perfect audience in that regard. But there were a lot of bugs. They did put up with a lot. The good thing for us is that we were right now in Switzerland, and a lot of the users were all over the world, but in the US. So we would fix things in their night.
That's practical.
Where they had the morning. So sometimes with these kind of pilots, especially if it's like a live software solution, they always tell you that the best thing to do is just, instead of building something in a silo, just put whatever you have, even if it is the worst version of it, in front of people. And if you can get those people to pay, at least it shows like intent, that if it is what it could be, people would pay for it. So that was kind of the ethos. And I think we got this actually from our research mentality, because it's always about MVPs and iterating on it, not trying to make the perfect solution and then publishing a paper about that, because then you will have gone your 6 years of the PhD and not published anything.
And so for you now, what are your tangible next steps? I mean, you did a lot of pilots then, right?
So Harvard was also not our typical use case, because we framed ourselves, and originally when we raised in January, we framed ourselves around B2B for enterprise. And we still are. So actually, Harvard we viewed more as a distribution channel than like an income stream, because of Harvard, we were in the hands of a lot of different teams at a lot of different companies with all of their diverse use cases, which helped us a lot. So the reason that we were really, really excited about it, and that we did some engineering effort and like specific ways to create like a curated path for each course that like then they could specify and then we could deploy. It was a lot of like random features that didn't necessarily make sense at the first version of the product roadmap, but it allowed us to have a really nice inbound channel of people who were already using Skole at their company, especially if they were like executives or senior leadership or something like this, like C-suite. And they would be like, yeah, okay, fine. Not everyone can take this like $2,000 a month Harvard course, but everyone can probably do like a $20 a month or $100 a month subscription to Skole for a few months. And then everyone can be on the same page. And it's not like the Harvard course, but like they didn't even have time to spend 2.5 weeks on that anyway. And so that was super helpful. right now we're doing 6 pilots, I think. So Scum and Decathlon, we're like co-design partners. We're doing one with Cope as well, and a bunch of others. One is with the union of all the folks behind Paramount Pictures, like all the film and TV and creative folks who are excited about learning about AI, and all of their use cases are different. And I think we're trying to figure out because we've created a pedagogical engine that is capable of generalizing, it is very easy for us to like take in their information and understand their specific need and do AI tailored to whatever use case. But now, for example, with Cope, it's like they had a 400-page handbook about food safety that no one was reading, and how we can create like the curriculum, just ingesting all of that into our knowledge graph to create like lessons that are tailored for different people and the way they would like, whether it's interactive or videos or whichever. So probably the next steps for us is figuring out the niches or the markets that we want to aggressively push in terms of go-to-market strategy. We're also going to the US in July and making our second office, and hopefully raising our next round maybe within another 6 months or a year soon after. And I think we are almost at the state where we already have something super cool, I think. We did our public launch 2 weeks ago on Product Hunt, where we just won, which was awesome. And I think, from there, it's really about like making sure that this platform holds up at scale and actually scaling it. So those are, I think, the next 2 steps for us. And for that, we need to focus a lot more on like the actual converting of the client pilot into enterprise contract, which we realize is actually a lot more challenging than we thought. It's like 7 different steps on the RFPs, and we need to have like SOC 2 compliance and ISO certifications and integrations and customer support, like a lot of things that are different than the pilot. So that's probably the next step.
Okay, sounds quite a journey as well. Yes, so thank you very much. It gives a bit more, a big picture of what you are doing and your path. For you, Fabian, can we say that it's a bit the same? I guess no, with the Fryer.
Yeah, very different.
It's a very different product. So you're operating in very demanding environment. Can you tell us more about what operational problems you are solving for your clients? And what was your success KPIs as well?
Well, that's a very good question. So as I said, there are like 2 verticals, so to say. One is the firefighting and one was the industrial inspection. And our first POC was with Holcim. So cement kilns, you have like hot oven that is running like 24/7 basically. And they have the issue that basically if they detect any hotspot on the outside, that they have to wait multiple days until it's so cool that you can send actual people in to do the inspection. And we wanted to, so to say, show them that our solution would be at least like a path towards a solution that they could actually deploy to do that. So for us, it was really also the very first time that we actually were in contact with like the actual end customer. And so not only, so to say, the actual deployment of the technology was a big learning for us, but also the interaction and how their processes are. And I think it's also important that you then realize really to whom you're talking to. I think often you have like the innovation people in the companies that are talking to you. Ideally, in the next step, you want to talk to the actual like maintenance and operations people, because they are the ones that are actually then pushing the whole idea. But for our specific use case, it was really more about, okay, can we fly a drone even close by to such an oven? So it was really the very first time. And I already said this earlier. So basically, for us, it was basically a bit of a challenge because we weren't there yet with our technology. So we had a drone that could fly, but obviously the industrial inspection people, they want, the best industrial inspection drone, but also with the ability to fly at high temperatures, meaning that the bar was extremely high for us who, barely made it to fly, to go there and, so to say, impress them. And eventually for us, it was also like really like an insightful event, because we realized, well, maybe the bar is actually too high to start with our go-to-market, because we realized, okay, you need basically be like a Flyability or any other multi-million-dollar company that's doing drones with the ability to fly at high temperatures. And this is then also why we focus more and more on the firefighting use case, because we realized the firefighters, they want to stream a live stream of the inside, meaning they want to have a tablet and the drone flies in and they send out the picture from the inside. And in industrial inspection, you want to have your own digital twin that you build up. You want to feed in the data in the already existing data platform. So there's so much more that you need to deliver as a company that we said, okay, probably it's much easier to go with firefighting.
So you face different challenges. And so I guess with the product, because you've got one prototype, right? So how it works. You have to be confident when you send it to the buyer.
Absolutely,
Yeah?
absolutely, yeah. No, I mean you have to be willing to sacrifices for sure.
Sacrifice. But
Like,
how you manage the
That's the deal.
preparation and how you manage, the expectation.
I think, yeah, I mean, expectation management is a good and important thing to do, right? Because again, right, if you go in with the whole like idea also doing your pitch, and it really depends on who you talk to in the end, but if you do the investor pitch to somebody who's actually operational and then you stand there with a drone that barely hovers, might be an issue, right? So basically you also have to, bring them down and really like take their hand and walk them through the process that's so to say coming after this POC, because the POC for us is really just like a entry point in the sense that we can show to investors, to our partners, that there is actual interest in that technology. And as you said, it's about so to say the vision, right? To see the actual long-term value in it. And I feel like in software it's probably like easier to adapt, and next morning you have so to say the new version of your product. For us, obviously with hardware it's not that quick. So yeah, it's a lot about taking the expectations and
do the alignment with expectations.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And so what kind of output did you propose? I mean, you explained a little bit, but how they use it after the pilot?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. In the end, so to say, the last package that we prepared was like a final report where we so to say mostly summarize what we did, why we did it, and what could also be, so to say, the future applications of the technology.
Okay.
Because we were there multiple times, we know a bit more about, so to say, the procedures, how they fabricate stuff. So we can propose some new ideas, right?
Yes.
And even though the technology is not ready, so to say, you can still project the applications that might come up in the future. And we're still basically in the process, right? So we realized, well, the technology is not there yet, but we try to convince them that there is actually like a vision that might be beneficial to them in the future.
Yeah. And how long was it to look for pilot and actually achieving to having a first customer?
Long.
A long time.
So,
How long?
I mean, it's big corporate, right? So
Yeah.
Holcim is the largest cement manufacturer in the world. So we were talking to the innovation people, and I would say they are like, again, much more agile, much quicker also in like giving budget to those kind of tests.
Yeah.
But as you also said, right, I think the moment then you talk to the actual maintenance and the operations people, then it's about ISO conformity and whatever, then it's a whole different story. But even for us, talking to the innovation people, took like several months until we were actually like deploying the drone.
And for you, Nitra, how long it was?
like a month and a half.
A month and a half.
maybe
So very
less.
quick.
Yeah, but that was like to develop the whole course. They like turned it around in 0 time. It was crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
we know why we said hardware, software. There is a reason for that. And so now with you've got a bit of we said in French recul. Distance on those pilots. Why it is what it does matter to do those pilots when you are a startup, and which kind of milestone did you achieve with them?
I guess I think the pilot process in general is so important, because you can design in a silo, and especially I think there are a lot of folks that come from like a place of expertise where they think they know what the field wants. For us, luckily my co-founder is a human-centered AI researcher, in that she's really specialized on co-designing with people. That was mostly her entire PhD, and I think having that from the get-go always in mind, that hey, we need to first do all of the requirements. Like I think we interviewed 60 people at Swisscom before we even started building really anything. I mean, we had a lot of the models and stuff, but like I think understanding the user needs, the pain points, what they would like in a specific solution is super important, and you can do that through a pilot. Like the pilot is never about the money. Like 5K, 10K, it doesn't cover like even half, like not even a fraction of the cost that probably you're doing to get the solution for them, even in a bespoke way. But what you're doing is like trying to find the customer that is right for what you're building, and the customer that is wrong, and what the needs are, such that you know early enough or as soon as possible that you're not investing resources in the wrong thing. And a lot of great ideas we came up with, I guess, were a collaborative conversation with Decathlon and with Swisscom, because they made the time to meet us like every week to see what we had every week, which was crazy. And I guess in software that makes a lot of sense, because you're continually developing a feature. But to make sure all the time that it's aligned with what they want, that's what a pilot can give you. I think. And the second part of that is also understanding who is the wrong customer. Like, you can have a lot of different pilots, and then you can see like which pilots are easier than others, which was the right path to find the right person that is actually paying for it, than a more difficult path. And figuring that out early with a lot of different companies makes the business, I think, a bit scalable. Like, for example, in our side, there's two paths. There's like HR and L&D leaders, and then there's AI productivity. If you can get in the hands of like the CEO, CTO, innovation person, the yes is so much faster than the HR L&D person that needs to like, wants to co-design with you and then figure out like a pilot with 100 people and then maybe roll it out to a team and then maybe roll it out to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then to evaluate the contract, they have a whole procurement process, et cetera. But luckily, the use case that we chose as our first one is one that feels a little bit urgent for companies. The way we framed it was, hey, you're investing in a ton of these AI tools and you're not getting the productivity gains you're promised out of them because you didn't train people on how to use them. And that is like a very concrete and immediate problem that whoever the CTO or the chief AI officer that now exists at some companies like sees immediately and wants to try it like next week if we had it ready for next week. So that find the right path and design to what users actually want rather than what you think users want.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and for you, Fabian?
I mean, same basically, right? I think one big part is really to also check your assumptions, right? When you go there, you assume that some things are like you imagine them, but usually they are not, and usually there's like much more complexity involved that you can't really see. And then the other thing, what you can get out of the POC, and that helped us immensely, was with all those kind of startup competitions. So if you have like Venture Kick, all these staged, so to say, processes, and we were really lucky that the whole POC discussion really fell into that period of time, which was like a couple of months only. So we were really able to leverage that, and we can really showcase that basically there is a customer that is willing to pay some money, right? It's not about the amount, it's really about the fact that they open up their purse to give you, so to say, the check. And this signal is so much stronger than obviously the money that you get from it, or even if this customer in the end is really the perfect customer. But just to show that there's like actual commercial interest in your product, that's I think the most important part for us, at least early stage.
Yeah, and so I mean, it helps to be closer to the user demand. But how big was the gap between your assumption at the beginning and then the product that you finalized with them?
I mean, for us, it's still ongoing, right? So we are not there yet.
Yeah.
So as I said, so I think what we realized is, so to say, the magnitude of distance we still have to cover to get to their expectations. So yeah, for us it was really, so to say, a point where we thought about, okay, should we maybe structure the go-to-market differently and maybe approach the firefighters first?
Yeah, I think for us the assumptions keep changing for each, because if you, what we realized, and I'm going to be very transparent here, if you go to an L&D team at this like enterprise company and you say, hey, we're a team of like AI researchers that love education, we believe in like making you the product you want, like they go crazy with their requests.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you do too many of them, it just, at some point, there's actually the other side of the dark side of doing too many pilots, which is having like, the cost for any of these companies to have a team of AI engineers and researchers working on this specific problem is a lot. Like, it is a lot, and they get it basically for free or for 5K or 10K or whatever to do a pilot with us. And then if we, like, tailor the solution way too much to what they want, like, they're super excited, and of course they're going to buy it, but then one company wants a different solution, then another company, then another company, then another company, and then at some point you have to think about what's best for your company, and what is, like, a generalizable feature rather than something bespoke. And if you are going to do all this bespoke work for a certain company, a certain pilot, then maybe you should be charging for it in an analogous way after you have something that like is already of some quality. When you have nothing, you should do all of that for sure. And so I think like we are now at this stage where like some of these pilots that are for 100, 200, like larger teams, etc., other than of course the Harvard one, which is already converted, but are in this procurement process of converting into a larger enterprise contract. And here we have to like be a little bit careful about how to structure the contract, how to think about what is right and what is wrong to do from our perspective in a way that it's like not an unfair deal. Of course you can say like for your early adopters you give a special pricing and a special deal and special stuff, but how to make it a sustainable business model is something that we're focusing on a lot. And the one tip that I would have that changed a lot for us in the last few months is that we actually got someone that knew what he was doing with
helps.
enterprise contracts. And I think there's no substitute for experience. Everyone talks about the young team that's and all of us are kind of young and scrappy, other than this one guy who really knows what he's doing. So get the guy or girl who knows what they're doing, and it actually saves a lot of time in trying to figure out how to structure this kind of stuff. You told us about so many things we didn't even think about.
Of course, yes. So the good person again and the right path. Yeah. And so, in one word, what kind of advice can you give to other funders in the room?
One word.
Or one sentence, sorry. One word is difficult. Maybe one sentence, yeah.
No, I think just go out and find customers that are willing to test your solution, even if it's not ready as soon as possible. I think that's the main part, right? Because nobody, all those coaches, all those investors, all those people in the ecosystem, they won't be able to tell you what the actual customer will tell you instantly when they have the product. And I think that's the biggest thing, I'd say.
Yeah, you also start seeing it through their eyes. It's so important. I completely agree with everything Fabian is saying. I think also there's also this importance in trying to actually sit with the user and see how they're interacting with it. And with software, it's now easy. There's a ton of tools that can do this that I actually heard about from some other founder friends back home, and then we implemented them at the beginning. And I got obsessed with watching the click streams of user behavior. Why do they not understand how our homepage works? And we understood you cannot just give someone all the skills that they could possibly want to learn. You need to give them a path and a journey and a place to start. Even if they can override that, even if it undercuts the utility of the tool, there are still all of these human elements that are super, super important that you will only realize by actually getting it in front of people as early as possible, even if it's terrible, because they can tell you whether it's wrong or right.
Yeah.
And then you see it through their eyes, in showing it to them. It's really important. Something I learned that was also a painful lesson is that I want to show them how to use it. And of course, when I'm clicking through the demo, of course it looks beautiful. But if they sit there and they get confused, then we have a UX problem, right? So there's putting it in front of not environments which are too easy, which I even consider the Harvard environment a little too easy, because these are people who for sure know that they want to drop more than 2K on learning how to use AI, and that they're high up at these companies, and it's a strategic priority for them. So they are our perfect user. But the user we're designing for is everyone at the companies who's bored of corporate training. So they're two different things, and that's why the pilots are important and the paying customers are important. Some people will tell you the paying customer is more important than the end user. In edtech, there's a trade-off as well between the person who buys and the person who uses. So this is also a tricky thing.
It's more than one sentence.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm joking.
I forgot.
That's great. Thank you very much. So maybe in the audience you've asked questions. We can open up the questions. Yes. Yes.
So you're doing software for AI, right? I assume you're using a lot of AI to build that software. Do you see any problems with that? That at some point you don't understand your own code anymore?
So, essentially, we are you can say we are AI to learn AI in some ways. Our system is a multi-agent system which has a knowledge graph, and we have knowledge tracing, which is it's another external AI tool to do skill aptitudes. There's a bunch of, so there's 3 levels of AI, right? There's AI in terms of the actual technical product. There's AI in terms of what we're teaching. And there's AI in terms of people using it for coding. So it's really turtles all the way down. And with the people using it for coding, we got everyone very early the Claude 200 Max plan. We didn't go the enterprise route because it's a bit more expensive and a bit more annoying. And I don't see the point in doing token usage. You should still think about a little bit what you are trying, what you're trying to make and why. But it is a worry. We have been burned by it sometimes. For example, Azure OpenAI went down while some of our customers were trying the product, and we didn't have a fallback because we just didn't think that would happen, which was a shame. And now we have a ton of fallbacks, and you keep figuring out all of these failure cases of where AI is not so robust in terms of the product or the engineering side, but then also on the coding side, we have a bunch of engineers who are hardcore engineers that some of them, for example, our front-end developer who had 10 years of experience, or we had a guy that was really into systems, he was a systems PhD with us, and they didn't AI in their code at all. And we had to be like, guys, come on. Like, we are a company teaching people how to use AI. Like, if we're not even using it ourselves, that's a shame. So I think it was more of that ethos, and then they came around. And then I think our front-end engineer ended up building like all of these amazing like skill files and like framework files to like audit what came out and how to like audit the PRs. And so if you can convince them that this is actually helpful and force them to use it a little bit, then they like a really good engineer figures it out.
But you're not scared that the AI will code something that you don't know actually that might be harmful?
I mean, we have a lot of agents, like again, it's turtles all the way down, right? Like there's like self-validating pipelines on each PR other than just the human review of what is like, what comes from the code. Like there is also like the greptile review that is like checking every like UX element in regards to like our code base and our rules. And like also like another one that's just, and then we created like a lot of end-to-end tests. So I think if you can add a lot of framework things in this place to check for this, it's really important. The second part of that is like this ISO SOC 2 stuff. Like if you actually are giving software for enterprise, there are so many rules about encryption and data, et cetera, that you have to be compliant for before they will like agree that yes, this should roll out to all 23,000 employees. And so in that regard, it does protect you a little bit from it because like you're like every part that deals with user data is protected. So the thing that you could have is a bug. You have bugs with humans anyway. Maybe it's a cost to going 10 times as fast as you could have. That's somewhat okay for me.
Other questions? Yes.
Thank you for very interesting remarks. How could we increase the chances of converting the pilots into actual paying customers?
That's a very good question that I'm also trying to figure out at the moment still. Because the product, as I said, right, is not really early yet, still not there yet, so we can't really, so to say, give them the thing and say, okay, now order 100. And there's still a bit of a too wide gap, so to say, for them to do this leap of faith, to trust us. There will be something that they can actually use. I think for you, it's maybe a little bit different, right?
I think the difference is having the pricing discussion in the like first or second conversation of like defining the KPIs extremely clearly. At the first or second conversation, because I know like when you go into the pilot, maybe for your first pilot you don't do this because you just need that first pilot. But for your second pilot, define the KPIs very clearly, define what the pricing would look like if it was a successful pilot with the full rollout, and make sure that both of those things are things that they have budget for and are interested in. And I think people even appreciate, maybe it's like my way of being direct about it, etc., but I think people even appreciate having this conversation early and concretely. I can say that we didn't do that with Swisscom and Decathlon because, again, they were co-design partners. We started on like an InnoSuisse grant. We had just incorporated the company, et cetera, and we were just like, man, we want to like develop this with you together. And now we're like 8 months, 9 months in and finally converting the contracts. But with the ones that we're talking to and like have talked to over the last months, like the process from pilot to conversion should be like 1 month, I think, or 2 months maybe. Yeah, and sometimes it's longer, but I think if it's like, this is our playbook, this is how we like to do it, and even if you've never done it before and you just come with that concrete thing, they'll be like, oh yeah, okay, this is how the startup works, fine, we'll like either do it or we won't do it. And it's much better to find out sooner than later that someone is not the right customer for you than waste a ton of your time on it.
Any other question on that? No? Yeah.
So I know you. How important was the having pilots in convincing investors to invest in your round? Did you already have those validated pilots? And you touched on it for venture, but those are more competitions. But when you're really talking to an investor, do you think that changes the discussion?
I mean, for us, absolutely. I mean, it's the same true for venture kick and all these, but the same for investors, right? Because I mean, if the investor is not an expert in that field and actually knows the problems that your customers are actually facing, they won't know, right? But if you have, so to say, the proof that there is somebody paying for the service, then it's a different conversation.
Yeah, I would even say without it, we wouldn't have raised. I think it has to be a big company's name for us to prove that like what we were saying is something that actually has a sustainable business model behind it. So I guess at tech specifically, people are not investors aren't that excited. We essentially reframed as like AI productivity, which helped a lot. And to have that use case, you need to have people willing to pay for it. So those relationships, in fact, I think even our investors, so we raised 3 million pre-seed in January, and our investors talked to our clients before they gave us money.
Yeah, I think it's quite convincing also to have also such names as a pilot and and first customers. Yeah. So now you've gone through all this experience. What you wanted to know? I mean, you know now that you wanted to know before. You said the KPIs, maybe to clearly fix the KPIs, but is there other thing that you think it's really relevant?
I think for us, as I said, right, so it's really that we know exactly what our customers, or I mean, I wouldn't say we know exactly what our customers want, because usually your customer also doesn't know what they want.
Yeah,
so that's a big part.
That's a big.
But we are like much more, let's say, aware of what needs to come, so that we can sort of say knock at the door again and be like, hey, this is our version 2, test it, because otherwise there would be no way to get there. And yeah, I think that boils down to the main message there.
Yeah, I think what I wish I would have known is, I guess, what I was saying before, that we don't need to like make every customer happy. Like there is like a notion of like customer obsession, right? That you just have to see like who people are willing, like what people are willing to pay for. But I think when you give someone like kind of a blank notebook of like, oh, what could this be? They have so many ideas, and not all of them are like right for the product vision, or like something that is generalizable. And I wish that I had kept that in mind earlier on in this like pilot process in this year, such that we didn't spend time on, I mean, all of them are good to have. And like, there's always some new customer that is also impressed by some feature that we built out for Swisscom or someone, right? Like, but was it on our critical path to being as fast as possible, as large as possible? Probably not. And so, yeah, keeping the vision of where your product should be or what's right for your company and what your North Star is in terms of a client in mind is really, really, really important.
And I mean, that's a similar experience that we also have, right? So usually every other customer that we talk to, they want like some special skill of the drone, right? And if it's either like, if it's ATEX certified, can it measure gas? Can it do contact measurements? So everybody comes obviously with a wish list, and I think it's really true also for us, because we have to then also be able to somewhat filter out and say, okay, what is the actual baseline product that you can use and have a benefit from before obsessing, so to say, with like some features that are only relevant to really like a niche of your customer group.
You need to keep a line with your core value, what you can deliver properly, and what your strengths, your value proposition, actually.
And I mean, for us, it's even more critical, right? So a detour of, okay, let's add this sensor or this capability to like hardware is like not like a 1 week of agents and a small team, but it's very different, right? So you really have to be a bit aware and sure about your decisions on the product that you do.
Yeah, but I would say even on software, like, yes, it is like a 1 month detour or a 2 week detour, but you keep adding them. And was it needed? I think is the point that I'm like feeling right now, where, okay, we've really talked to a ton of users. We know that there are use cases for each of these, and maybe we should sell them all as different products and then make a ton of money. But yeah, critical path, and like knowing, like trusting yourself as a founder at some point, thinking that like this is the path to like the like, even though they want this, you can say, hey, it's in the works, and they didn't expect for it to be there next month. You don't have to be that obsessed with the customer. You can think about it and like putting it at some point on like a larger product roadmap, because I think the team is like so excited that someone wants to pay for it and someone wants to play with this and someone wants this feature that, and we can't build it in a week, so we just build it. But maybe there's something to be said about making the core of your product really, 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 really good, rather than having like a bunch of things that are good.
Yeah. Thank you for this advice. We've got the space for one last question. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elrike. I'm from South Africa. Very much from the university perspective, I would just like to know, the university space has its own bureaucracy and also teaching and that sort of thing. How did you navigate moving from the education part, publications, into the product, because that's where I'm stuck right now, and navigating that pathway to say, okay, I'm going into a business.
Yeah. I was just talking to Isabel about this before. I think Switzerland is particularly good at this, and maybe it's a model that could be used in other universities, other countries. Maybe I'm talking about EPFL specifically, perhaps. There was a lot of support from the time we had like the idea that this is what we wanted to do after our PhDs, to like getting the letters of intent, to applying for InnoSuisse, then we got a grant. So basically, technically, right now I'm a postdoc, fake postdoc, until June 1st.
For me, actually.
Yeah, fake postdocs, which are great. Like I think there's this way that you can get a grant to make a project that gives you, so I'm American. I couldn't stay in Switzerland if I didn't have a permit. I probably could for a few months or whatever, but like it completely disincentivizes the process of, you know, you're starting up a company if you didn't have funding and you didn't get the first customers and you don't even know how much to pay yourself. And then Swiss law has like all of these things about like what the minimum amount that you could have. You know, it's a huge risk to take, especially like as an AI researcher, we could get like a 500K offer from OpenAI probably. Like it's really, really hard to do that. But the structure that I think the universities here, even better than the US, have is this protection that basically allows you to develop the thing for a year. The university kind of programs that allow you to be like, hey, I'm a sciencepreneur, or like a entrepreneur in residence, where we had our office in the lab, and then we got too big for it, and then we moved to the EPFL Innovation Park, which was in the same space, so we still had like our friends in our lab community, but we were working like with a bunch of startups, and then we moved to another campus, and all of this, like I think EPFL has been super supportive with. We're still, as I was saying, not paying for office space yet. We had like a year's worth of free like support from these entities, and the ability to have support in applying for this grant, which we then got, which gave us the employment through the school, which made everything easy for us. So this first step was so crucial towards being helpful. The other way, I think, is because we had the accelerator offer in the Bay. Like we would have just done that. We would have like risked it all, but we didn't have to. Like we felt much more comforted and supported by the university ecosystem here than like rolling it all on like a gamble of the dice. And we could have both, luckily. So it went really well.
Yeah, so I mean, I can just basically say the same about the whole ETH ecosystem. I think there's like so much bridge funding that is dedicated to giving you, so to say, this safe haven of trying something out, finding the market traction. If not, if it fails, fine, right? You're still employed by a big institution, so you don't have to like instantly do this leap of faith, so to say, and just jump. And yeah, that's very special, I think, in Switzerland. So I think from our perspective, it's obviously really hard to like give advice to how it works in other ecosystems, but maybe relocate to Switzerland, I guess.
I would say getting out of the lab helped a lot, because like in the same environment that you did your PhD, like I don't know if you feel this way or not, but like everyone is still like worried about deadlines and thinking about, oh, this would be like such a cool paper, or this would be great collaboration. Collaboration doesn't get you money, so it's not like actually worthwhile for the startup to like collaborate with someone for no reason. It should be pushing to figure out like how to actually make this a product. And so once we like left for like a few months to the Bay and then came back, we really felt this jarring atmosphere with like being in the lab, because like everyone was pulling us into our old ways, and we were like, no, wait, like we are like trying to be a company, not a project.
I have this cool paper idea. You want to jump on?
Exactly. No, exactly. And we like you could feel yourself falling into those traps.
No, for sure.
Well, you did an amazing journey with the pilots, and congratulations again for what you've done. Thank you so much for sharing with us your journey. It was very inspiring. And so, yes, I wish you have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.